All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is the first time in a while that I've done a double header. I did something earlier over on my sports channel, Big Discussions 76 Sports, uh, for a Michigan football game. You guys know that I am a Michigan alum, and Michigan just happens to be at the center of what's about to transpire in the next 25 days. And so, as you know, decision, quote unquote, 2024 is coming up in 24 days. Please smash that like button if you haven't. The likes are free and they help with the engagement. And I'm hoping to get my AdSense payout for this month. I don't go live on this channel every day, so I don't get the AdSense as regularly as let me pronounce my words. I don't get my AdSense as regularly as some of the big boys. So I'm hoping to get it for this month. I want to thank Nub Glory for his first comment. He was the first one in before I went live. That's always cool. He says, Barack Obama gave a patronizing lecture to Black American men. That is unacceptable. T. Riddler says, hi, Doc. And Cynical Optimist says, salute, Dr. Dunbar. Thank you, Cynical Optimist, for being here. So, you know, guys, this is a nuclear topic. And, you know, but I this is something I've been watching all weekend. I went on a road trip to see a relative, my father. I didn't see my father in a while, and I was listening to reaction to this. I actually saw the footage of Obama giving this talk late last week. I didn't pay much attention to it, but when I started seeing what he actually said, I said, "Oh my goodness, this is wow." Okay, so I'm going to give some reaction to this. And I think I might have a unique take on this. And I have some things that are going to set up Obama's words. We're going to start with Obama's words, and then I'm going to come back to them in the end, because I see some things here that other folks might not see. Well, I have my own unique way of saying things. So I'm going to start with my Dr. Kiyoski Johnson intro regarding the 18-point Black male agenda. For those of you who don't know, I did a live stream back in Black History Month of this year with Dr. Kiyoski Johnson of the Onyx Report, who was from the Academy himself. And he wrote this book, which is entitled Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry, Flat Blackness, and Black Male Death. And I think that's a good jumping off point, because for the people who are looking on with a peripheral, surface level understanding of what President Obama said and where his words hit, you may be thinking, okay, what's the big deal over what he said? Maybe there are groups of Black men in particular who don't want to see a woman elected president. Some people may be looking on and seeing that and thinking that, but the seeds of this have kind of been planted for years. Okay. And the fact that Dr. Kiyoski Johnson actually created this agenda with the help of others. And now, interestingly, today, Madam Vice President Harris has presented her own offerings for Black men to court that vote. It's just a very, very interesting turn of events. And this is something in my lifetime, this whole turn of events, this is something that I've never seen before. So I'm going to play my intro, and then I'll jump in because I don't want to be on all night long. So this is one of my Dr. Kiyoski Johnson intros, the 18-point Black male agenda. Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information.
Look, it took me a long time to accept that Black women have been pondering politics that work in their interests for generations. Black men have never been acculturated to doing that, in my humble opinion. I think many of us have been working with that Black communal idea that goes back to the 60s and 70s. We weren't thinking of politics specifically in our interests as Black men. We were thinking about Black community. So as we started to reflect upon how, even in the last few elections, these women are functioning in a manner that is about them, not about the community, we're caught between either we try and convince them to operate communally, or we actually start to think about ourselves, or some combination of both. But this is where the 17-point Black male political agenda comes in, because even if you watch presidential candidates who only show up every 4 years and maybe have one conversation with Black men in some kind of symbolic, barbershop, and ask them questions about what they want politically, most of those brothers had generic answers that were really about Black community. They were addressing racism, not specific to Black men. Very few of these guys ever sat down and said, well, looking at the data, this is what Black men are going through. They talked about Blackness. They talked about community.
Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. Not everybody is privy to the same information. So, as we head towards decision 2024 and you're dealing with relatives or whomever, people on the street, you probably don't want to get into these talks with coworkers. But I think the most important question to ask is why? Why do you feel the way you feel? Are you going to vote? Are you not going to vote? Who are you throwing your support behind if you are going to vote? If so, why? Why not? Why aren't you voting the way I'm voting? And I think that one of the problems with our country right now is we don't have the ability to ask why anymore. We don't have the ability to understand why I may pull the lever in a different way than you do. And so there are people who don't understand. There are people who will look on at a surface level with President Obama's remarks and say, well, what's the big deal over what he said? He's probably right. But there are many people who don't understand the nuance behind what he said and why he's getting the blowback that he's getting. There's a lot of nuance to this whole thing. There are a lot of underlying dynamics to this whole thing that go way beyond what he said in his comments. And you know what? Let's look up the word nuance. On my channel, I like to learn things here. So just as a jumping off point, let's look up nuance. Because many people have a very surface level way of looking at things. And this weekend, talking with a relative about this stuff, I realized people don't always have a nuanced way of thinking. So nuance. And sometimes people don't want to look at things with a nuanced way of thinking. They want to look at it in their way of thinking. No, there is no nuance. It's this. It's the way I feel. It's the way I think. Nuance is a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. Okay, again, a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. Okay, if you guys notice there, we're going to get to President Obama right now. If you notice there, the background for this stream is the chessboard. And if there's anything anyone gets from this stream, there is this. There's the game, right? And then there's the game behind the game. Okay, so with politics is a dangerous game. It's a game of deception. It's a game of manipulation. It's a game of seduction. And so oftentimes things are being said out in the public square, but there are things happening behind the scenes that oftentimes the average person cannot see. Okay, there's the game, and then there's the game behind the game. All right, so I'm going to play one little passage from what President Obama stated. Okay, I'm going to show two more things, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to conclude. So what stood out to me most about what he said was probably this passage right here. You guys let me know what you think there in the chat. Fair use, YouTube. Fair use. This is probably the piece that stood out most to me. Fair use. You guys let me know what you think in the chat. Fair use.
And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think.
Fair use. Part of it makes me think. Fair use.
Speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
Fair use. Let's listen to that one more time. Part of it makes me think that you're not feeling having a woman as president. Fair use.
Makes me think, I'm speaking to men directly. Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
Fair use. So part of it makes me feel like you're not feeling having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other reasons and alternatives to avoid voting for a woman for president. Okay, so first of all, when he gave that little diatribe, it was to a select group there, and I think it was right there. I think those were people working on the Harris campaign. So he didn't go out and ask black men on the street, not a pre-selected group. He didn't go ask, well, if you're not going to vote for her, why are you not? He was essentially preaching to the choir, quote unquote. I would have challenged him to go out and ask if you're a black man and you're not, and there are other men who are not, why? What's the why? What's the reason? What's the nuance? Okay, and then my other question would be to him, I'd use the Socratic method. Are there other reasons why? So that's your hypothesis, President Obama. And you are a black genius. Shout out to Real Brother, the late departed Real Brother Radio. That's your hypothesis. Is that accurate? Is that real? Is that a legitimate reason why people may not want to vote that way, or in this instance, men? You singled out black men, but is that why? Are there other reasons? That's something I would ask him if I could talk to him. Now we're gonna put President Obama there. I'm gonna show two more things, and we'll come back to President Obama. I was watching something earlier. I'm gonna read some comments here. JJ Marr says Obama has a poor history of communicating with the black community, especially with black men. Abdul Gaines says all that Obama can do is racially gaslight. His legacy wilts with each passing day. Outside of identity, his political resume is an abject failure. So I guess that's a good jumping off point for me to say this right now. I think, going back to my intro of all of us living in different worlds, there are black people who don't know that there are other black people who dislike President Obama and his presidential legacy. Okay. There are some black people who can't imagine that there are other black people who don't like President Obama, who don't approve of President Obama, and who don't look fondly back on his presidency. Certainly it was historic, it was magical, but in terms of the after effects and what was done and what was done for whom and who benefited and who didn't, there are quite a few people, black people in particular, who just don't understand that there are black people who do not like President Obama today. Okay. So, and I think that triggers something called cognitive dissonance. Let me see if that applies here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So I'm going to read this. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Some people experience cognitive dissonance when they hear stuff like that. Like there are Black people who don't like or approve of President Obama. Here's another vocabulary word for us. Okay. Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological state of discomfort that occurs when someone holds conflicting beliefs, attitudes, or values. It can also happen when a person's actions are inconsistent with their beliefs. To relieve the tension, people may change their beliefs or behaviors, justify or explain away the conflicting information, ignore the conflicting information, and persuade themselves that there is no conflict. Okay, so a lot of people experience cognitive dissonance when hearing about President Obama and how a lot of Black people feel about his legacy and what was actually done or not done. So my question to President Obama would be, well, is that the reason? Is that the reason why some people, you singled out Black men, why some people are hesitant or unwilling to vote for the Democratic ticket at this time? There's a podcast that I really enjoy. It's called Dad Saves America. I watch a bunch of different things, just like Mr. Z. And Dad Saves America is another podcast. And Robert Kiyoski was recently on Dad Saves America. Okay. And who out there is familiar with Robert Kiyoski? Anybody? Are any of you out there familiar with Robert Kiyoski? Okay, I'm jumping to something that I'm going to pull back into this. Who out there is familiar with Robert Kiyoski? Yes, J.J. Mars. That's right. Robert Kiyoski wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's an investment. He's a financial literacy guy. Okay, so in this podcast, which is below in the description box, he gives many of the talking points from his gospel, his financial literacy gospel, but he also makes comments about government and who runs the government and what many of our government elites actually know or don't know about economics and how money works. So this is one clip. I have like 3 of these that I'm going to jump to. But again, the question to President Obama, if there are people who are hesitant to vote for the donkey this time around, is it the fear of voting in a woman for president, or is it something else? Fair use, YouTube, fair use. Fair use. Okay, let me go back. I almost overshot it. Okay, fair use.
There's no financial education in our school systems. Then the people running our government are idiots.
Gee, I wonder.
People say, well, the Federal Reserve Bank has either 400 or 4,000 PhDs.
Fair use. Let me go back. The people running our government have PhDs. Well, let's hear what Robert says again. Fair use.
There's no financial education in our school systems. Then the people running our government are idiots.
Gee, I wonder.
People say, well, the Federal Reserve Bank has either 400 or 4,000 PhDs.
Fair use. The Federal Reserve has 400 to 4,000 PhDs.
My mind goes, that's 4,000 or 4,000, like my poor dads. They're academic geniuses who know jack about money.
Okay, so they're PhDs who are academic geniuses but know jack about money. Fair use, fair use.
And they're killing us. So when I see that, and then you have my generation was the first baby boom generation.
Fair use, fair use. Okay. So what has been one of the concerns about the candidates, and which candidate is trusted more with the economy and which candidate is trusted less with the economy? Okay, you guys let me know there in the chat. Okay, so right now, one of the fears is our government is being run by all of these elites, these quote unquote elites who have PhDs. I have a PhD, but I know my limitations. I'm proficient in a certain area. But what he's saying is the government's being run by elites who don't know jack about money or financial literacy. And they're the ones who are pushing the buttons and turning all the levers. I'll ask the question again. One candidate is thought to have a better grip on economics and how to revive the economy and get it back on track. And one is not. Okay, so again, my question to President Obama, is your hypothesis correct, or is your hypothesis wrong based upon what we just saw? I'm going to jump to another one at 3 minutes. You guys keep letting me know what you think in the chat. Fair use, fair use. Fair use.
We've got passion, we've got determination. Like, and if we set our sights on something, you better believe it's happening.
In a place where there's so few workers, young people, for so many old people.
Yeah.
How do you think about what that means for all of us?
So this is something nobody's talking about. There's so fewer younger workers for older people. What do you think about that? There's so fewer younger people for all their older people, the older people are going to grow. This gets to immigration and the southern border and that type of thing. Fair use, fair use. I'm going to go ahead once more. Fair use, fair use.
My shared concern, I don't know what's going to happen, but something has to happen. You know, that old saying is, how'd you go bankrupt? Slowly and then fast. Well, the speed's about to go fast right now, all over the world. You look at Japan. You know, when I was a kid, they were the miracle of Japan.
Fair use, fair use. Robert's been, early on in his books, he's been writing about Japan and their decreasing population and their how that's affecting their economy. He's been writing, he wrote about that in the beginning in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Fair use, fair use.
Well, now their yen is worth nothing. And, you know, the Japanese aren't the brightest when it comes to money. I'm Japanese. I'd say that. Fourth generation American Japanese. I mean, they print more money than we do.
They're not the brightest. They print more money than we do. Okay. So have we heard any murmurings about the economy? Any murmurings about too much money being printed? Have we heard any discussions about too much money being sent overseas or too much money being sent to this group and not having enough money to pay for this over here? Okay. Has anybody heard any talk of that? Okay. So back to President Obama, is your hypothesis about why people are reluctant to go to that side, is your hypothesis correct? Okay. Let me check that one off. I'm not going to go over that one. Printing money. I'm going to jump to this clip right here. Okay, so I'm not telling anybody how to vote, but when you hear about the yeah, Tori L, if you're a content creator, you know what? I don't have this down pat just yet, but when you're showing someone else's content, you're supposed to say that so that YouTube doesn't slap you with a copyright strike. I may get it anyway. They might demonetize it, but there's a reason for doing that. And again, I don't have it down to a science yet. But thank you for your inquiry. All right. So the Trump years, what's one of the things that you hear about the Trump years? Okay. One of the things you hear is that we weren't in any wars. We were relatively peaceful. Okay. So this clip right here gets to that. Tori, I'm sorry, Tori L, but fair use.
A vision and mission, if you're trying to lead an organization, ends up being the most important.
I'm going to jump ahead here to 36 minutes. Sorry about that.
Hit with rotten eggs. My commanding officer said it the best. I said, gentlemen, we fought for the right for them to do that to us. What? That's freedom of expression. We fought for that right.
I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit because I think
I'm going to call a baby killer. And one of my best friends, Robbie, never came back.
For our kids. I don't know that I believe this, like, oh,
I don't know why. That was my only interest. There wasn't a class called money at school. I just studied, So
Yeah,
I brought
the greenback and the Civil War.
Yeah, my own.
Just a greedy bastard for
Yeah,
the early age.
Yeah. But when you print.
Okay, here it is. Sorry, Tori. Fair use.
Yeah. But when you print money, two things happen. And so Nixon was the guy that printed money, the first guy. And it was from the Bretton Woods, all the history, look at how he came up. Every time they printed money, there's been war.
Every time they've printed money, there has been war. Okay, I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit further to hear what else he has to say. But think about that. Every time money has been printed in mass amounts, that's led to war somewhere. And what may be happening around us right now?
Right. So I brought
the greenback and the Civil War, 1920s.
The Weimar Republic. It brought Hitler to power.
Yes.
I was in Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe went down. But when you study money, every time you print money, two things happen. The rich get richer. Poor middle class get poorer.
Every time you print money, two things happen. The rich get richer. The poor get poorer. All right. I'm just going to play this just a little bit further.
And the reason for that is when you print money, so-called assets of value go up. But also expenses for food and things go up.
When you print money, assets of value go up, but also food and basic living expenses go up as well. Okay.
So when you see homelessness increasing, the more we print money, the more homelessness, because they can't afford the house.
We'll guarantee to help.
Okay. So some people are voting on reproductive rights. Some people are voting on economics. Some people are voting on wanting a first-time home loan, a $25,000 home loan. Some people are voting on wanting to see a Black woman president for the first time. So is it just, are there financially minded Black men out there who have studied this stuff and who understand this stuff and don't like the direction that our higher ups have driven the country? I'm going to play one more from this set. I'm going to wrap up soon, guys. I don't want to keep you here too long. Toriel, I hope you're still content out there. Let me jump ahead to 39. I think you guys are really going to dig what's said at 39 minutes. When I heard it, it was kind of eerie, but also, yeah, it's going to. going to be some real food for thought. Okay, here's one more. Tori L, struggling to connect the dots. So Tori L, so the question was, if you think about President Obama's question or his hypothesis, it was, he said, I really think most of you don't want to see a woman become president. And I'm asking the question, is that accurate? Or are there other reasons why people are not voting in the direction President Obama wants them to vote? Okay, and what I'm showing you is that there are other things that other people are thinking about as it relates to economics and the overall direction of the country. That's what I'm trying to argue here. I guess I'm not doing a good job. Okay, this last one. Oops.
Not what they say. So that's why I'm
Let me go back. Sorry, Tori, I got to say it again. Fair use, fair use.
the thing I was taught at the academy, because of ring knockers. You watch what a person does, not what they say. So that's why I observe people. So this guy Biden, not Republican or Democrat, but his first act was, you know what it was?
So he's asking the question, do you remember, Tori L, let me see if you can answer this. Do you remember what President Biden's first act was after being sworn into office? Does anybody know what his first act was prior to being sworn into office? Anybody? Well, Robert's going to tell us.
His very first act.
The student loans, wasn't that, or no?
No, that was Obama.
Oh.
Another criminal. But anyway. No, it's
You're not wrong.
well,
Is assassinating American citizens around the world. He's technically a criminal.
yeah. Now, when he cut, his first act was to cut the Keystone XL pipeline.
Okay, does anybody remember that? Tori L, do you remember that? One of President Biden's first acts was to cut the Keystone pipeline. Okay. So as soon as he got in there, he cut the Keystone pipeline. So let's go forward and see why that's significant.
And I went to Kings Point, okay? I'm an oil man. My first job was in Standard Oil. I understand oil. When he cut the pipeline, I own oil wells. And the moment he cut the pipeline that day, oil went under.
So the moment he cut the pipeline that day, let me rewind that. I'm just trying to see when you're showing other people's videos, you have to interject so that you're not just plagiarizing. Please smash that like button.
I'm an oil man. My first job was in Standard Oil. I understand oil. When he cut the pipeline, I own oil wells. And the moment he cut the pipeline that day, oil went under Trump. I was selling oil for $30 a barrel. Next day was 130.
So under Trump, he was selling his oil at $30 a barrel. The next day it was 130. Now here comes the punchline.
So that's what.
So he lined your pockets with that.
I almost voted for Biden after that one. Trump kept the prices down. And so at 130, I'm making money hand over fist, but I knew exactly what he was doing.
Okay. So now he's going to talk about why he thinks. Okay. You guys are throwing me off there in the chat. Okay. Here's what you guys need to know. Here it is right here.
Because that's what Marxist guys did. By raising the cost of living or inflation, you now have two classes. So what Biden did was he created another class called the upper middle class became poor. He did it intentionally. I watched that going, God, why? And then, so you notice what's happened, and then you see homelessness increase and all this stuff. It's intentional. And that's what Trump was fighting, the deep state or the dark side, or whatever he was fighting.
Okay. We're sitting here watching an Asian man. Okay. But do you guys see the connection here? Tori, do you see why does that matter? The fact that that ticket, that side cut the Keystone Pipeline, and he just said it created he said upper middle class became poor. Okay, so that one act drove everybody spending upwards. Okay, so going back to my question, Tori, man, you got to put it together, dude. I can't spell this out for you any more clearly. No, some people are not worried about a woman being president. Some people just want a decent, affordable economy back. Okay? Does everybody understand that? That President Obama said it's this, but it's not necessarily this, it's that. Okay, does everybody kind of understand that? There are all these little subtle moves. There are all these little subtle moves that have been made and decided. Okay, people are hurting right now. He just stated that the level of homelessness has gone up through the roof. Assets have become unaffordable for some people. More people living on the street. But President Obama is saying, no, it's because you guys don't want a woman to be president. So in some ways, that's very, very disingenuous. But it's not asking why. Why do you feel the way you feel? Maybe if he went out and asked a wide sample of Black men, what are you after? They'd say, okay, well, we want a bustling economy again. We want to be able to afford things. We want cheap fuel. Okay, that's something that stood out to me about when I heard him talk, among other things. Now, I'm at 40 minutes here. I don't know what YouTube's going to do to this stream. But Tori, yeah, that's why I went into the discussion about nuance, because when people are talking about this election, they're not thinking about all of the factors. They're thinking about this one little thing that they're focused on, but they're not looking at what all the factors are and what their other countrymen and countrywomen are going through. Folks are focused on their little issue in their little silo. And if you don't agree with them and their little issue in their little silo, then something's wrong with you. And I was talking to a relative this weekend, and he said, well, I can't let her down. I can't let her down. Okay, so some people are approaching it that way, like it's their duty to vote for Madam Vice President Harris. And this particular relative focused on, there are rednecks, quote unquote, rednecks voting for Trump. And then I asked the question, well, how do you explain the number of Black people who are voting on that side? How do you explain the number of Hispanic people who are voting on that side? How do you explain the number of Black people or the number of Asian people or Arabic people who are voting on that side? Okay, or maybe not voting, or maybe voting for Jill Stein. How do you explain that? But there's this myopic, it's the rednecks, it's the rednecks, it's the rednecks, or it's gender. A lot of people want an economy back, a nice economy where they can live and not struggle the way that people have been struggling. Okay, I was going to show something from Funky Academics, because it turns out today, I'll pull this up for you all. I might do a stream on this tomorrow. We're going to sprint through this. And you guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. Just bear with me for a second here. Tori, thank you for a moment there. I didn't know if you were just being confrontational just to be confrontational. I have more of an encyclopedic focus over here. Where are my bookmarks? Where are my bookmarks? There they are. So this is and I cannot wait to see Dr. Tiasan Johnson's reaction to this. I can't wait. I'm on the lookout for Dr. Tiasan Johnson's reaction to this. This just broke today. Actually, it broke last night. I was watching Tariq Nasheed last night. This is on X. A lot of people feel like X should be banned at this point. Okay. But this gentleman right here, his name is CJ, and he quarrels daily with people who are not supportive of Madam Vice President Harris. So he's very much pro Madam Vice President Harris. So he posted this today. I'm going to sprint through this. It says today, Kamala Harris released a specific, in all caps, a specific agenda targeted towards things Black men have said is wanted. So where does the goalpost move now to say, well, they haven't said what they won't do for Black men? The agenda includes, I'm going to sprint through this. Pathways to high demand jobs and expanded education access agendas. Harris's agenda promotes education, training, and mentorship programs to equip Black men with the skills needed to succeed in high demand fields, to increase representation of Black male teachers. Health equity remains a cornerstone of Harris's agenda. There's a National Health Equity Initiative. The vice president has committed to legalizing recreational marijuana at the federal level. Okay. Harris further proposes building 3 million affordable housing units during her first term. Still another facet of her plan would tackle racial bias in home appraisals. Okay, and pervasive issues that often result in undervalued properties in majority Black neighborhoods. Harris's economic plan centers on wealth building and supporting Black entrepreneurship. Okay, her administration would provide $1 million worth of forgivable loans, each up to $20,000 to help Black men and others who have faced significant barriers to starting businesses. Okay. So this was in response to a lack of what seems to be a lack of Black male support. Okay, so this is a, hey, look, we hear you, we're doing this for you. We're doing something for you now. We're doing something for you now. But it looks like, well, it's within 25 days of the election. So the way it appears is that it's kind of a last ditch Hail Mary pass. Okay. So I can't wait to hear what Dr. Tiasan Johnson has to say about that. But I'm at 44 minutes. We're going to go back to Barry's clip, and I'm going to say one last thing, and then I will wrap up. Thank you for everybody who held on. Basically, to me, you can't just restrict it for why a person's voting. You have to ask them why. Why are they voting? Why are they not in support of a candidate? Why are they in support of another candidate? Why are they not voting? Okay. Is your reason accurate? But President Obama's words, well, let's talk about President Obama's words, because something occurred to me after I listened to that over and over and over again. Kareen of House Atreides says, I like Funky Academic, though I don't completely agree with him. Okay. Kareen says, I'm still voting Jill Stein because she has a platform specifically for Black people. She's far from perfect, but I'm tired of the duopoly that has not done anything for our communities. I think we're way past the need for a third party, a third or a fourth party. Yeah, I think we need some sort of change there. T. Riddler says, listen to how all-inclusive this list is. Nothing about that list except the black male teachers piece is specific to black men. Non-Swirl Zone says, Dr. Dunbar, if Harris is an extension of Biden, why were some of these proposals not implemented over the past years? Excellent question. Andre says, the forgivable loans more so seems like a response to the small business tax credits. That's not exactly black specific. JJ Mars says she waited to the last 2 minutes of her campaign to float this smoke and mirrors plan. Now, in her defense, and in President Obama's defense, I think BGS said this, that anytime you try to put a bill through specifically for black people, it's going to get struck down. So I do acknowledge that you can't just push a bill through for the descendants of slaves. So I do hear that side of this. Let's hear Barry's words one more time. And I'm saying that with respect. Let's hear his words one more time, because I'm going to end on this. I don't know that I'll open it up tonight because I don't have time. Let's see. That was at President Obama. That was at 3 minutes. Sorry, Tori, I got to say it one more time. Fair use, YouTube, fair use.
But, you know, Cousin Pookie might be. And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that.
He's got a problem with the reasons and excuses for not doing what he thinks you should do.
Because part of it makes me think, I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
Okay, so you guys there in the chat, you guys who are still with me, Kareen, you can answer too. Is anyone out there averse? Is anyone out there averse per se to having a female president? Anybody? Do any of you guys disagree with that? Just because of that, I don't have a problem with a female president. Does anybody have a problem with that per se? T. Riddler says no. We're doing a little informal poll here. Non-Swirl Zone says, again, why is there so much media focus on black men when we make up a tiny segment of the voting population? Yeah, aren't we about, what, 6%? Because black people are 13% of the total population. So if we're just under half of that, then we're like 5 to 6%. Does anyone get particular heartburn about the principle of a woman being president? Aquateki says, no, we are not averse to a woman president. JJ Morris says, care less if it's male or female. Cynical Optimist says, nope. Non-Swirl Zone says, yes. Passport OG, the GOAT, has entered the building. He says, we voted for Hillary. Does anyone have heartburn about having a female president? Kareen says, no. So many female heads of state all over the world. Okay, Kareen, I would read that, but so President Obama. Okay, this is another woman saying this. Everybody, no, she's just incompetent and not ready for the job. Okay, and there are people who feel that way. Somebody's feelings are going to get hurt after seeing this, but this is what people feel this way. Okay. non-Swarozo, and this is another concern that there's a concern that the president, the current female candidate, would feel like she'd have to buck up on the world stage and show how tough she is. So that's a concern there. Okay, so I think the consensus here is that most of us don't have a problem with that per se. What I will say about President Obama's words, and this is something that occurred to me as I was listening, and once I had added together all of the bits of information that I'd heard about what had happened and how she became the nominee. Okay, everybody, let's go back to what I said at the beginning of the stream, and that there's the game, right? And then there's the game behind the game. Okay, so there were a lot of fireworks after that first debate between President Biden and President Trump. Okay, there was a lot of movement on the Democratic side after that first debate between President Trump and President Biden, and that movement was to get President Biden out and to get him to get out of the race. Okay, so he got strong-armed out of the race by individuals on his side. Okay, that's one thing. Some people wanted an open primary, a mini open primary. Okay, and President Biden said, no, my girl's going to get it. Okay, so what that did is that pretty much that disagreement would have thrown everything into complete turmoil. Okay, so one of the people who really wanted that open primary was President Obama. Okay, and so that means that he wasn't, okay, allegedly, that means that he was not hook, line, and sinker for our Madam Vice President. Okay, so one of the things I thought about when I watched this clip of him, one of the things I thought about when I watched this clip was, number one, President Obama is a smart dude. He is a genius. Shout out to Real Brother Radio, who had probably the biggest bromance with President Obama. Okay, Real Brother Radio, he's deceased. He used to refer to President Obama as a black genius. That black genius, that black genius, that black genius. And President Obama, yes, he is a black genius. He's articulate. He's very thoughtful. He's probably very calculating. Okay. And I said, well, didn't President Obama know that there'd be significant blowback from him saying this, from him approaching this way? Didn't he know that a lot of people would not take this laying down? Didn't he know that this would cause a firestorm with him saying this? Didn't he know? And then I wondered to myself, well, hold up, wait a minute. Did he know? Was this intentional? Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Knowing, and President Obama's not stupid. He's a black genius. Shout out to Real Brother Radio. Rest in power. He knows what people are saying about his legacy. He knows what the murmurings are about what he did for whom and whom he didn't take care of. He knows. He knows his whole circle. They know about the divide in the current turmoil in the black community. He knows. So is it possible that he knew that the one demographic that he singled out, did he know and understand that demographic would dig their heels in and resist even further. And if he knew that, then why would he do this? Okay, there's the game, and then there's the game behind the game. Okay, these political parties, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said these are corporations, and there are agendas. Even within those parties, there are agendas. Okay, there are individual political machines. There's a California political machine. There's an Illinois political machine. There's a New York political machine. There's a Southern political machine, each with their own agendas, each with their own candidate that they want to uplift to be the next president or whomever. So someone else in the digital spaces made that same conclusion last night, that those words were not random. And certainly President Obama calculated. Okay, I'm going to get myself in trouble. With him being a black genius, he must have thought out all of the outcomes of him saying what he said. He must have thought all of this out. And he must have thought the outcomes out as well. And thus the results as well. So I'll just leave that there. I have intelligent people there in the chat, so I think you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. So, but that's something that occurred to me as I was listening to all the coverage as I was driving around in upstate New York. I said, okay, does he know what he's saying? Does he know how people feel about him? Does he know? And if he does know that the severity of how people feel, does he understand what kind of reaction this would cause? Okay. And I'll stop that there. Cynical Optimist, I'm going to have to look this up. He says a Xanatos Gambit. I think I know what you mean by that. And, also take a look. Take a look out in California to piggyback off of that. Take a look out in California at what's been going on with Governor Gavin Newsom and the whole reparations fight out there. Look at the ways in which Governor Newsom has been maneuvering the reparations discussion, but also trying to court the positive sentiment from his black residents. So one of the hypotheses is that if Madam Vice President Harris doesn't ascend into the seat herself, then the next man up is Gavin Newsom from California. Again, there's the game, and then there's the game behind the game. Most people are focused here, but there are a ton of other things happening back here as well. Non-Swirl Zone says, did you think Obama was telling us what to do? Dr. Dunbar, sunning us. It came off that way. It certainly came off that way. But then, again, the question is, he's a savvy politician, very well-spoken, very calculating, very strategic. Did he think that was going to work? Or did he foresee something else was going to happen? And was it worth the gamble? Well, at this hour, maybe it's one of the only plays left, but did he understand what he was doing and what the responses would be? All right. He says, Dr. Dunbar, you should do a video on the Great Black Migration to the South over the past 10 years. You know what, Non-Swirl Zone? maybe I'll throw that one on the pile, and I'll hit that. Certainly, I know that there was a great migration before I was young. Well, when I was young. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind. All right, everyone, that's what I wanted to say. That's my reaction to what I saw after listening to video after video after video about it. Politics is a dangerous game. I mean, and it's a multifaceted game, and there are multiple things happening at once beyond the face value of what we see. And when someone hearing the history of what happened in that party when President Biden was ousted, and then knowing President Obama's intellect and his acumen, this occurred to me about what his true intentions may have been. JJ Meyer says, some will say he's just a pimp when it comes to Black people, how he used us before. That's how he used us before. Yeah. Okay, everyone, that's all I've got. I'm going to wrap this up. Tori L, thank you for hanging on. I apologize for all of the fair uses. I will keep an eye on my YouTube studio to see if I have a lack of ad suitability or some sort of reprimanding by YouTube. You know, I've played footage from other people, but I don't know that I've ever played it that long before. Andre, you're funny. I need to understand how to use that better. Reynolds, salute Reynolds. He says they pushed bills through for Native Americans. They pushed bills through for World War II internment camp Japanese Americans for $20,000. Obama and Biden awarded $12 million for assistance to Holocaust survivors. Yeah. I think someone, might have been Passport OG, put a clip of him signing that Native American. He's got that really sophisticated way of, and President Obama leans his head to the side when he signs things, like, and then he looked up like this, and then he stood up in his black suit. But yeah, you're right, and I think again, I get it. It's for Black politicians. It's almost a if it's specifically for our people, you know, maybe trying to push a bill through blatantly is a suicide mission. So I get that part of it. But anyhow, all right, everyone, I'm going to wrap this up. Let me know what you think. Hopefully this stays up. I didn't say anything. You never know with YouTube. You never know. This is a game in itself. Anyhow, thank you everyone for weighing in and humoring me. I wanted to do something on population decline. So you might, and then, you know, Madam Vice President Harris just presented this plan for Black men today. So you might see me again later on this week. So I've been doing once a week here, but you may see me again soon. So everyone, have a good night. If you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. And on the playback, you can also leave a super thanks. And with that, enjoy the rest of your night. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.